with little skin and a T-line. Little skin and a T-line, right? If you are to put the belly button up a little higher in preparation to revise, this is very specific, I know exactly what you're talking about. If you were to put the belly button up a little higher in preparation to revise the T-line in 12 months, do you have to do a floating belly button when moving it all down? No, you don't. Okay. No one else understands what you've just asked.
Can you make it more?
Yes. Now, gosh, I've got to backtrack a lot. With a tummy tuck, people tend to say, look, I want the scar as low as possible, and I will put the scar wherever you want it. I can put it wherever you want. Where the underwear you want the scar to be hidden behind, and that's where I'm going to put your scar. I mean, give me a centimetre of error. But that's
so we ask patients to wear their favourite underwear, or the underwear they want to wear after the tummy tuck. Wear that to the consultation, so we've got an idea of where.
That's where your scar's going. So that is, if you think about all the skin I'm removing from your tummy, well, that's the bottom edge of the scar. Fixed. Now, we have to cut your belly button out. Your belly button comes from underneath and then attaches to the skin on the surface. So I have to circumferentially cut around your belly button. That just leaves a little belly button stalk dangling there. We pull the skin down and we cut out the excess and we cut out a new hole for the belly button. But if your belly button is quite high, I've already decided the lower end of the scar, and now I've left a hole in your skin where your belly button used to be. So I have to cut out above that hole I've left in your skin, or there will be a hole in your skin. If I can't remove all of that, and sometimes you can't remove all of that, then when I pull all of that skin down, that hole where your belly button was just gets pulled down rather than cut out completely. So what do you do with the hole? Well, you close it. So that leaves you with an additional scar. So in some people, quite unusually, maybe I'd say 3 or 4 a year, but in some people...
I don't think it's that many.
No?
No.
I warn maybe 5 to 10 a year, and I do it in far fewer. But let's just say a small number of people where you can't remove the belly button, you have to just close the hole, which is where their belly button used to be, but it's now been pulled down. So that closure, that extra scar will be quite low. You can close it horizontally, but because you're pulling, if you imagine a circle in some skin, cut out a hole, and you pull it downwards, it often becomes a vertical slit anyway. So essentially what that becomes is a little T-junction, a little vertical extension of the scar in the midline, right at the bottom. So that is what this lovely lady is saying, with little skin and a T-line. So what I sometimes say to patients is, if I preempt that, if that's what we're going to need to do, I say, well, you know something, if you would like to not have that little notch, there's nothing we can do about it at the time of the tummy tuck surgery, but later on, what we could do is I could then just remove that whole bit of scar, including that little vertical bit, that little extra notch, and just pull it all down. And in preparation for that, what I could do is say, well, why don't I leave your belly button a little bit higher than I normally would, so that when I do that, it gets flumped, junk a little bit lower, and it ends up exactly where we want, and you don't have the extra scar. You can do that after a year or so, because you normally have, however tight I make you, after a year or so, you're not tight anymore. You're still tighter than you were, but you get some recurrence. So it's possible to do after a year what you couldn't have done the first time. This comes to the question. If you therefore put the belly button a little bit higher in preparation to revise the T-line in 12 months' time, do you have to do a floating belly button when moving it all down? No, you do not have to do a floating belly button. A floating belly button is where you cut the underside of the stalk. So I said that when moving the belly button, you cut circumferentially around the skin at the top. This is very techie. Circumferentially at the skin around the top, so that you leave the belly button stalk in the same place and you move the skin relative to it, and then you re-inset the belly button. Another way of doing a tummy tuck, a different way, is where you leave the belly button stalk attached at the top, but you snip it at the bottom and the whole thing can just pull down really easily. It's not a technique I love, I have to say, for various reasons, and I'm already kind of losing you, so I'm not going to go into that. But it's not a technique I love. But the question is, do I have to do that at the second stage? You absolutely, not only do you not have to do it, you must not do it. It would be the wrong thing to do. You can't do it. Because if I were to cut the stalk at the bottom, and a year earlier I've cut circumferentially around the top, then where is the blood supply getting in? Blood supply gets into this belly button stalk in you now, not having had surgery, I'm presuming, both from the bottom and from the top. When we do a tummy tuck and we cut circumferentially around, even though we stitch it back in again, basically the blood supply now only comes in from the bottom. It doesn't really cross a scar very easily. Then if some numpty goes in there a year later and then cuts the stalk, the little tube of belly button is just going to die. So you mustn't do that. So the answer is no. I could have just said no.